This is our breaking news tonight. Protests in cities around the country demanding justice for Breonna Taylor. I want to get straight now to CNN's Jason Carroll. Jason is in Louisville, where a curfew went into effect an hour ago and where police are awaiting a press conference. Jason, take it away. We had at least one police officer. What do you know? What happened?
Right, and we are waiting, Don, for more information about that officer that has been shot any moment now. We're waiting to hear from Police Chief Robert Schroeder. He's expected to give us more details about what happened. But let me just review and get to the point where we can really explain how we got to the point where that officer was shot. It all started just at about 8 o'clock. We were at Jefferson Square Park. The crowd started to become more and more agitated. Some of them started to set small fires. Then minutes later, at about 8:15, a crowd of a couple hundred broke off from the park, started marching throughout downtown Louisville. Once they reached an overpass, we heard what sounded like to be fireworks. And then shortly thereafter, seconds later, Don, we heard what sounded to be like gunfire. Then everyone started running. And then seconds later, after we were able to secure a location, we had heard word that an officer had been shot. I want you to listen to what it sounded like from one of the camera positions.
Shots fired.
Good? I'm good. You all good?
We're good.
Right there, officer down, right there.
Officer down?
Yes. Get the cover!
Officer down. Take cover. Officer down. Take cover.
So you can see some really tense moments there as we were all there trying to take cover, trying to determine what had happened. But again, we are awaiting word right now from Police Chief Robert Schroeder, where we are expected to get more information about what exactly that officer. And, just from the Taylor family perspective, Don, we have heard over and over, they have said that they wanted protests tonight and going forward to be peaceful. Certainly that is not what we saw at the end of this night.
So,
Don.
Jason, just to reiterate here, we know nothing about the circumstances. Who did it? What were officers shot? What was the officer shot with? Nothing. We're still awaiting this press conference to get that information.
The only word that police have given us at this point is that an officer has been shot, period. They say that they are going to give us more information, again, in a few minutes. I can tell you just from looking at a number of folks who were in the crowd, we saw a number of people carrying weapons. But again, this is the state of Kentucky. It's open carry. It is legal to carry weapons here, but it certainly gives a heightened state of tension for officers who are out here trying to manage, trying to police what's going on as protesters march throughout the streets. But once again, police were not giving us any details. They said we're going to have to wait until the chief gets here. He's expected in a few minutes.
Jason Carroll, Jason on the scene, and Jason will get back when police have that press conference in Louisville. Thank you.
Protesters and marchers were walking,
Simone,
and there was
I
fireworks.
want to get to the news conference. Please stand by. We're waiting a news conference now. The Chief, Robert Schroeder, preparing for the conference, and let's listen in.
Good evening. I'm Robert Schroeder, Chief of Police, Louisville Metro Police Department. All the information I'm about to give you is preliminary in nature, and additional information may arise as the investigation continues. At about 8:30 tonight, our officers were called to the area of Brooklyn College on a large crowd and shots fired in the area. As they were deploying to investigate what was going on at First and Broadway, shots rang out and two of our officers were shot. Both officers are currently undergoing treatment at University Hospital. One is in alert and stable. The other officer is currently undergoing surgery and stable. We do have one suspect in custody. That's all the information I currently have. I'll take any questions briefly.
How concerned are you about those officers and the safety of more officers and the citizens on the streets tonight and in the days to come?
So if I understand your question correctly, it's how concerned am I about the officers and the citizens' safety? I am very concerned about the safety of our officers. Obviously, we've had two officers shot tonight, and that is very serious. It's a very dangerous condition. I think that the safety of our officers and the community we serve is of utmost importance.
Can you tell us about the injuries that the officer sustained, the one who was in surgery?
To my knowledge, they are both non-life threatening. That's about as deep as I can go right now.
Do you know where they were shot?
The names of the officers that were shot?
We're not releasing the names of the officers at this time.
Do you know where they were
guys.
shot?
Thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you guys. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you guys.
A very short news conference by the chief of police, the Louisville Metro Police Department, Chief Robert Schroeder there, giving very limited information, but also confirming that 2 officers have been shot. One is both of them are undergoing treatment at University Hospital in Louisville. One is in surgery and stable. The other one is alert and stable. He also confirmed one suspect in custody. Both of the officers' injuries, he believes, non-threatening, would not give the name of the officers, would not give the extent of the injuries or where they were shot, and would not give the name of the suspect as well. Again, saying 2 officers shot, being treated at a local hospital there. 8:30, he said officers were called for a large crowd in the area. Upon arriving or upon going out to see what was going on, because they never really arrived at the where they said they were going, which was Brook and College. He's saying somewhere near First Street, the officers were shot. So again, 2 officers shot in Louisville, Kentucky tonight. Let's get back now to CNN's Jason Carroll and talk to him about all of this. Jason, you heard the police chief there talk. He said the safety of the officers, also explaining why the officers were where they were, happened at 8:30, and now the officers, one's being treated, the other one is unstable. Both are unstable. One is being treated, one is not. Both alert.
Right, and we were right there at First and Broadway, that overpass that I was telling you about, where we heard what sounded to be like fireworks and then heard the gunfire. Then everyone started running to take cover. And you also heard the police chief talk about how concerned he is for officers going forward. It's been a very tense situation with officers here on the ground, given what's happened, particularly with officers from the Louisville Metro Police Department. You heard him say that we thought initially that it was 1 officer that had been shot. Now we're hearing it is 2. You heard him say one is in stable condition, the other is in surgery, but their injuries are not life-threatening. But you can hear the concern. You can see it from the officers who are here on the ground. When you see them out here trying to interact with some of the protesters, some of the demonstrators, it was very clear as word started to spread, Don, in terms of what had happened with the grand jury, that the crowd was becoming more and more agitated again. And this was a crowd that started at Jefferson Square Park, where we see that permanent memorial that's been set up in some ways, if you will, for Breonna Taylor. And as the night started to go on, and as we got closer and closer to curfew at 9 p.m., you could see that the crowd was starting to become more and more agitated, starting to light small fires. And then as a group of about a couple hundred broke off from that park and started marching throughout downtown Louisville, again, we saw some folks carrying weapons. Again, it is open carry, legal here. But then we heard the gunfire rang out, and now comes word that, in fact, 2 officers have been shot. And this lies in the face of what Breonna Taylor's family wanted. I spoke to Breonna Taylor's mother. She said that she wanted protests to proceed for justice for her daughter, but she wanted them to be non-violent. She said those people who are out here in the past, who have been, destroying property, that is not in her daughter's name. So this is certainly not what Breonna Taylor's family wanted to see tonight. This is certainly not the situation that Louisville Metro Police wanted to find themselves in.
Jason, I want you to stand by because I want to explain to the folks at home what we're seeing on the left side of the screen. You're seeing Jason in Louisville on the right side. The left side, you see officers in Atlanta. Now it's a full in a confrontation, it looks like, with protesters, officers with their weapons pointed at protesters in that crowd. And it looks like the protesters were, let's see, maybe that's a camera. I can't really make it out, but maybe it's a camera, so don't quote me on that. I'm looking at these pictures. Obviously, they're live coming in, and I'm seeing them just as you are. But it is sad. Here we go, another night after there is not a verdict in this case, but an investigation that does not seem to go the way that it should go for the family and also for the people who are involved and live in the town or in the places where these horrific events happen and there's unrest in an American city. We're watching this play out in Atlanta. Our Jason Carroll is in Louisville, Kentucky, as is our Shimon Procopio. Both were near the scene of this shooting by police officers, I should say, by one suspect who is in custody now, and also two officers who were involved. One is in surgery, the other is alert and stable. One is in surgery and stable, and we'll continue to try to get updates on them. Shimon Procopio, back to you now. Officers now in an aggressive stance in Louisville. There was a 9 p.m. curfew. Take us to the streets now. What are you seeing?
So this is, Jason talked about there during his live shot about Jefferson Square Park, where they've set up this memorial for Breonna Taylor. You could see that just over my shoulder here. That entire area is set up as a memorial. And this is where a lot of the protesters have been gathering for weeks now. What's happening now is the police, they're not enforcing the curfew, right? The curfew took effect at 9 o'clock, and they've allowed, you can see the police here, Don, standing. This is the state police. These are the reinforcement that the Kentucky governor sent in, along with the National Guard. Of course, you have the Louisville Police Department, which has been patrolling most of the streets and dealing with the protesters that have left this area and have headed out through downtown and other parts of Louisville. I was with a group earlier as well. There was some smaller group. There was some pockets of flare-ups between police and protesters, and they made arrests there. It all starts here, and then they leave from here. Most of the people here, it's been peaceful. They've been voicing their opinion about police, and the police here, the state police, have just been standing by, allowing them to voice their opinion, their anger. And for the most part, people here are just sitting around, standing around. And as I said, as for this area specifically, this is where City Hall is, the courthouse is here, the local jail. The police are not enforcing the curfew, and they're just allowing many of the people who are out here to remain. As long as it stays peaceful, I think this is how it will remain here, Don.
All right, Shimon Procopio, thank you very much. We have breaking news happening in cities across the country. There are protesters who are upset about the officers not being charged in the death of Breonna Taylor. One officer being charged, but not directly in her death. We're going to be back with our breaking news on CNN. Don't go anywhere.